Welcome to Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
I'm John.
And I'm Chandra.
So we have a new addition to the team today. Chandra is going to join us for this conversation. We're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 3. We're going to review the season, since it's a season review. Of course, spoilers are ahead, so if you haven't seen the season, if you haven't seen everything, go away, watch the rest of the season, or watch the season and come back. Before we jump into things, please like and subscribe. That actually helps people like you find this video, and it helps the channel. So we're going to talk about the season in blocks. So we're going to talk about the first 3 episodes, and the next 3, and then the next 4, and then the final 3. Let's start with the first 3 episodes. As I said, That Hope Is You Part 1, Far From Home, and People of Earth. So what did you guys think of how this season started? John, what did you got?
So we last saw Michael and the ship's crew on the Discovery go through into the future. So 900, how many years was it? 30? 930 years into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Michael come through. Lands on some planet and trying to figure out where the heck she is. And then she runs into new character Book. And that's where the adventure begins. So that's where, just like Michael, we're discovering where the heck is she? What planet is she on? What's it like in the future? So it's all brand new, definitely brand new territory. And I love the fact that they really jumped far into the future. They still had the crew, well, Michael in this case, in the very first episode, and put him in brand new situations. So it was very exciting to me to see, and I really did not know what to expect, because many of the other Star Trek seasons and other Star Trek series have already ventured into certain territories that I'm quite familiar with because it's been done. But this one's definitely very new, very far into the future. I don't think we've had a Star Trek series or episode that went that far and just did not know what to expect. So I was loving that. I was definitely loving that. And then, of course, we see the crew come through later in a separate episode, and then finally going to Earth and meeting everyone there and see what it's like, especially first contact with the people of Earth at that time. So again, everything seemed fresh to me, and at the same time, I like the focus, definitely the first several episodes, about mental health, and I like that they were highlighting that, they were trying to address that, and trying to come into grips with, I saw like lots of themes of leadership and how he's trying to fulfill that role as the captain of the Discovery. So those are my takes of the first 3.
Yeah, I agree. I was excited to see them jump that far forward, because we've seen so much of that same time period before. Was really excited to see where they took this leap so far into the future, and relieved that we didn't lose anybody from the crew, because to the second episode, you don't know if everybody is going to make it. But yeah, I was really excited to see that they jumped so far forward into the future, because like John said, it's an opportunity to do something new, see something fresh, and it really, I think, set the tone for the whole season. I was also really appreciative that they focused on mental health, because I feel like with shows like this, the characters go through so much. They've already been through so much trauma.
Yeah.
And the tendency is to just keep, plugging along like nothing's happened, like we're not separated by a 1,000 years from everybody and everything that we know. So seeing them start to deal with that in a realistic way, I think, is also, like, groundbreaking, just heading into new territory. And I think telling a richer story, because I'd rather us not pretend that what they did wasn't a big deal. And then seeing Earth again, I think, and the excitement that everybody had, and thinking like they were so hopeful. I still had a lot of questions, but so hopeful. And then to have that hope snatched away, to see that Earth was no longer part of the Federation, so isolationist, so cold to them, I felt their pain, but I loved the way they resolved. And they were able to go to former Starfleet headquarters and sit under that big tree, and just, I guess, be reconnected in a sense to their home. So those are my thoughts. And I want to say I love the style of the Black women in this show. So the chief of, what do they call it? The United Federation, Earth Federation, the chief of
United Earth, Planetary Defense,
United
Earth, yeah.
Just throughout this series, I think, like, seeing that many Black women with natural hair and just these really just strong, beautiful characters.
Right.
I feel like this is like what Star Trek has always wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like Discovery is really fulfilling a lot of things that previous series might have missed the mark on.
Yeah, it was a great start to this season. The beginning of the first episode, just how ebullient Michael was when she found out that their mission was successful and there was life.
Yeah.
That scream of joy.
You have reached year 3188.
Is there life here? Anywhere?
Multiple life signs detected.
It was a great way to reset,
Yeah.
because a lot of the things that she's been reacting to in the first two seasons has been dour and has been like wrenching and difficult for her. So just to see her react in that joyous way, it hyped me up just how excited she was. So that was a great way to start. And I appreciate they focused on just her in the first episode as well, as she's trying to get her bearings. Like you said, John, we're trying to get our bearings because we're in a completely different place in Star Trek universe that we haven't been before. It was good to not focus on too many things and help us get our bearings. I also like that they didn't stretch that out. When I watched it the first time, I was like, I guess they could do several episodes like this, but I like that they didn't stretch that out too long. They only have 13 episodes. The second episode, we're back with our crew, and they're dealing with, like you said, their trauma in a really realistic way. I'm not going to repeat what you guys said, but what I really appreciated about that was not just delving into those things, but the fact that they're just giving more. They just gave more to the actors to do. The bridge crew, specifically actors, Kayla and Owo, mostly Kayla. She was basically the cipher through which the entire crew is basically feeling this trauma, but she's the one, driving the ship. And she sees the things that are coming towards the ship first. So I guess it makes sense that she has some trauma. Plus, she was also, we met her in the first episode of season 1. And when we first met her, she had half of her head, which is gone now because of that, because of what happened in that episode. So she's gone through a series of traumas and a war. So actually dealing with that stuff and making Culber the ship's counselor also makes sense, seeing as how Dr. Pollard is there and she's the chief medical officer. So having him have another role also was a good adjustment. And maybe they'll make it official in the next season that he's the ship's counselor. And they'll actually use him as a ship's counselor as opposed to what they did with Diana in TNG, which was not use her as the ship's counselor and just use her in very problematic ways. And then, the journey back to Earth was also good. It was good for a couple reasons. It was good that everything wasn't perfect as soon as they got back to Earth. It would have been a very short season if the way that they left things was exactly the way that they found them, just advanced a little bit. It was interesting to see how quickly, I guess 900 years is a lot of time, but actually the Earth hadn't cut off themselves from this Federation 900 years ago. Had only been like a few hundred years, maybe 100 years.
I think it was 100 because the burn was only 100 or so years ago.
So it was interesting to see how quickly they turn inward, though, after having the Federation for almost a millennia. And they turn, and Earth turned inward. The entire quadrant turned inward. So that was a very cool way to show how things had progressed and also how the quadrant was basically in a dark age. The Alpha Quadrant had fallen into a dark age. And and the connection back to Earth at the end of that episode was also pretty sweet. I think the specific issue within that episode was largely forgettable. I understand why they did it, because it was bringing a little bit of their century into the future, the way that they would actually handle things diplomatically, and people apparently have forgotten how to address each other in a diplomatic way, and they're bringing the morals and the ideals back from their century forward to this dark age. So I understand why they put that there. I don't think we're going to see those characters again, although we might see the woman that you're talking about. Interesting story about her, that actress. She was going to apparently give up on acting until she got that part.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool that she got that part, and it was an awesome part. So when they go back to Earth, I'd like to actually see her again. I don't think we're going to see the other guy again, but
or maybe she'll be an ambassador for Earth, and we'll see her like at Star Trek headquarters or something. I'd be happy to see her. Again.
Yeah, that particular episode definitely, you could see the parallels of what it looked like. They were trying to make a commentary of today's political climate, where you got Earth becoming very isolationist, just like America was heading in that direction under Trump, and at the same time speaking about the differences between the two and just really not communicating the diplomacy that was, I guess they just threw away with it for a while until the Discovery showed up and really showed them, hey, let's make some breakthroughs here. And they did, breakthroughs in their communications. And to me, I just saw that as, even in today's political climate, how I don't think it would have been resolved that quickly. It'd be nice if they could Discovery came to and saved us in that way, but very easily. And something that you didn't know about? Did you know about this? Great. Everyone shake hands, hug, and episode over. But I did see where they were trying to make a little bit of a commentary there. Subtle. Maybe it was a little heavy-handed at first, but then, like you said, it just became a little largely forgettable after that. Because I wish they hit it a little bit harder. It is what we got in that Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I appreciate Giorgio in that moment where she kicked off the guy's helmet and was and revealed him, because I'm like, this talking could have gone on for so much longer. She's like, no, look, you are the
she knew.
Yeah.
Right? She cut right to the chase.
Right.
And sometimes you just need somebody to kick you in the pants and be like, look, let's just get this done.
Yeah.
We got to do it.
Yeah, Giorgio was good in this episode, even though she was used sparingly, but she was really good in the previous episode as well, Far From Home. Even I had my problems with that episode mostly because the problems that I have with that episode are the problems that I have with the season in general around the bad guys. The bad guys don't seem very interesting to me or compelling. Osira... And when we get to those episodes, we'll talk about this a little bit more. Osira in a couple episodes seemed more interesting, but for the most of the season, she didn't seem that interesting. And this guy from this episode, you knew the way that they ended it, he was going to show up again, but he wasn't interested. He wasn't interesting enough to show up again, and I was hoping that they were going to show up again. But yeah.
But Nathan, back to what you had previously said about Michael having a Michael-centric episode in the first episode. I wanted to see more. I wish they spent a little more time with her and Book.
From around these parts, the Federation mostly collapsed after the burn.
What's the burn?
Time traveler.
There was no other way.
I want to see those adventures, all those little side jokes they had. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. I know they had a little thing there. I was like, great. All these inside jokes. Like, remember when we did da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, when I did this. Come on. Give us some flashbacks or something. I really wanted that. But like you said, they had to cut right through.
Yeah, they had 13.
But also I think to see, to see Michael's growth, right? Because she obviously, since when she does see Discovery again, and how her approach to things, it would be really cool, I think, to see that evolution in her, just being more like Giorgio, cut to the chase, and let's do what we need to do to achieve our goal.
You guys, from your comments, I actually have two thoughts. One trivial and one more substantive. You said that she grew, and I'm sure you didn't mean this, but the hair growth was interesting. Yeah. So
how did she get the hair?
What did you think about the hair? So you were talking about natural hair earlier. What did you think about the hair? My wife has some thoughts about the wigs that they put on Siniqua. What did you think of the hair for her?
So one, I think they're doing a better job in season 1.
Okay.
Because
I don't know what was on her head in season 1. It looked weird.
It did. And then there's no reason, Black women's hair does not look weird in 2021. There's no reason why it should look weird 1,000+ years. So there's that. And seeing the growth I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. And then she got braids, and I was like, oh, the braids, whatever. But then when we found out she'd only been there for a year, I was like, I don't know if that's a lot of hair growth for a year. So I figured she'd been in.
My thought there is that they've made some advancements in black hair. So maybe there's just like a machine that just put synthetic hair in her head or something like that. Because I don't think it was.
Yeah, I'm sure Buck salvaged that really did that type of stuff in that quadrant.
Yeah.
My wife is a huge fan of her short hair, especially in the interviews that we saw. She's really pretty with the short hair, so I'm a fan of the short hair too.
Yeah.
No, I agree. They must have really great machines in the future, but I'm also she's a scavenger or whatever, who has time to spend hours getting your hair done.
I don't know. It's 1,000 years in the future past where they were, and they're I don't know, 400 years. So hopefully in 1,400 years, maybe you can get it done. Maybe you can get it done in half an hour, or even less. They have matter, which
programmable
matter, and all kinds of stuff like that.
And you swim with that.
Just get a 3D printer.
Yeah,
No, but they do. I think they do a much better job with her hair than in season one, and I don't get it because O's hair has always looked great.
I think that actress, she's a Nigerian. I think she probably does her own hair. I don't know if she does her own hair or someone in her family does her hair. I feel like they have two women of color on the bridge. They should definitely get a hairdresser in to do their hair. And maybe they do in this season, but it didn't seem like they did in the first season. They didn't have a black hairdresser in the first season.
And now that you bring it, like I realized how it really bothered me in the first season for some reason. I was like, I feel like this should not be, like, you can afford to hire somebody to get
she's the lead of the show. She's the lead of the show, right?
And the costume designer, like, is a black woman.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, how does something like this fall through the cracks?
It's interesting.
So the show was, I'm curious now what Daniela thinks about
she doesn't. She didn't. She had comments about the wig. She didn't think that they were very good. You'd have to talk to her offline about the specifics, though. I don't think she thinks this is as bad as some shows are really bad, but they're And now I forget the more substantive thing, but that was a fun detour. We should probably move on.
But that is substantive.
This is true.
Though.
This is true. This is true. It is substantive.
Because we're imagining a future, right? And when we think about what that future looks like, we think about like who's there and who isn't there. And so we see a lot of women, people of power. You see a lot of racial diversity among the crew, the bridge crew. Like, so we laugh at it, but it's also, okay, can we not look messed up in the future?
Right, exactly. This is true. It's good. It's good that we're actually there, because in science fiction for the longest time, black people weren't even there until Star Trek. So, being there,
and even Tilly's
right.
hair, even Tilly's hair, I think, is a big deal, because like Tilly started with like tight buns, and you see like this beautiful red hair that I like. You see her personality.
Right.
Like grow and blossom, and her hair does the same.
Right. Yeah. The one thing that I actually forgot to mention before we move on to the next block is to see the beginning of Saru mentoring Tilly in the second episode, which is great. I think Tilly has always been one of the main cast members, but it was interesting to see their specific dynamic throughout the season. And also Saru, as you said, Chandra, stepping up to the chair as captain, I think in episode 3, because Burnham found them at the end of episode 2. So like stepping up to the chair and the weight of that, because we saw even in season 1 how seriously he takes it. He was like, bring up the most decorated captains in Starfleet. He takes it very seriously. So seeing his command style was interesting this season. Were you guys someone was about to say something, I forget.
I was just going to talk about as you mentioned about the diversity, and Chandra, you mentioned it too, just seeing so many different types and diverse casts of people. I recently started watching Babylon 5, which is from the 90s, and man, that show is so white. It's very distractingly white. Yeah. What's funny is it's jarring, because in the first season they actually had 2 people of color on that show that were not aliens or dressed up in alien makeup, and then you see I guess that was the pilot episode. In the very next episode, they changed out the crew. They're gone. Everybody got whitewashed, right? They got replaced with white characters, and they're pretty much all gone. And I'm only in episode 3, but it's quite jarring to see such generic-looking people play these characters. And then you contrast that and compare with Star Trek Discovery, and it definitely gets me a little bit more into it, because you see such a diverse crew, and I know that definitely draws me because I see
that's an important point before we move on, because I think all 3 of us are a certain age where that was basically the norm, right? We grew up and we had to project ourselves into these characters, because basically we see a spot of color here or there, but it was mostly white, the protagonist, and we had to empathize with whoever was on screen. But a lot of shows today, not just Star Trek was a pioneer in the 60s, but a lot of shows today are far more diverse. So it's very distracting when the entire cast, if a new show comes out and the entire cast is white, which is what the new Strange New Worlds show, that was one of the first things that was a little distracting to me, because the 3 characters that we had from season 2, Captain Pike,
white.
All white. But we recently got an update on the cast, and they have a lot more people of color on the full cast, the full bridge crew. So it's not going to be as white as it seemed. But the three main people are still white in that show, which is just a little weird compared to other shows. All right, let's move on because we've been talking for about 20 minutes about the first three. So let's move on to Forget Me Not, Die Trying, and Scavenger. So Forget Me Not is the episode where we go to Trill. Die Trying is the seed vault, and then Scavengers is the prison camp. So, Contra, do you want to start with this block?
Where we left off, this is, I think, the first time you see a Trill who's not white in this episode. I guess the leader of the. So that was. It's like, oh, okay, they're incorporating it everywhere, which makes like sense biologically, but also just like that's the world. So we see Adira. She can't remember who she is or how she got this Trill. And if we, know anything about Trills, we know that they have these symbiotes. They live for a long time. They're passed from host to host, and the current host has the memories, retains the memories of past hosts, and she can't access any of that. I guess she has snippets because she knew enough to know that she was Senna Tal, but not much beyond that. And we've seen this pool before where I guess there's a Deep Space Nine where Jadzia Dax goes there to retrieve the memory of a host that I guess whose experience had been buried deep because they murdered someone. It was sort of nice to see how she got the Trill. That was a hurtful experience for her, but to have that sort of awakening and see the past host welcome her. All of that, because I don't think they've ever sort of done that before. You see 5 or 6 hosts, the previous Tal host for Tal, and now have her welcomed by the Trill because they lost a lot of their symbiote in the burn, right? So this is, I guess, it set it up for the end of the season where you see the Trill had also left the Federation. Or hadn't been contacted by the Federation in a long time for good reason, but now here's a way for them to not lose their history. The prison camp where Brooke is captured, and Michael has to come rescue him, seeing the way the Emerald Chain has. They do everything that Starfleet fights against. So they're complete opposites, and you sort of realize what Starfleet meant to so many worlds, right? You didn't have, at least on as large a scale, as slavery and just violence and death. And you saw that in, I think it was episode 2, where there's still people who believe that Starfleet can come back. They believe in Starfleet, and they believe in the ethos of Starfleet. And we see that here again. And then unification, where you see Michael's mother. This is hard because I don't know. There's a part of me that hoped that they would be reunited.
Die Trying is the.
Oh, that one. Sorry, yeah.
The Seed Vault.
The Seed Vault. Yeah. Yes, that one. That one was, and that's where they first get to Starfleet, right? Like that scene where they see all the technology and everybody is 5 years old again, and they're like, oh my gosh, like detached themselves, and this. That was it. It was just like a really fun moment, and it's almost. I wonder like how the actors, because I think a lot of this is.
Yeah, it's not there.
Shot with green screen. They're not actually seeing any of this. And I think it must be like so difficult to play to that. Here's all this cool, like you're already working on a starship and now you're presented with like even cooler starships, like that leap in technology. So that was a fun scene to see them and just the look of the Starfleet headquarters. I think I didn't know what to expect before that. Didn't move to a different planet. They've created this, field. This
distortion field,
space, this protected space. And you sort of realize, like, how small the Federation is now, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the power that it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, Forget Me Not, that one, going to the Trill world, that started to feel a little bit like Star Trek. Clearly, it's still a part of their whole season arc with the introduction of Adira, and they're going there. So I really like seeing that. I was like, oh yeah, this feels like a Star Trek adventure with you got an away team going down there and the diplomatic relations and trying to solve a problem. And in this case, a very personal one for Adira because they hold the key. Mm-hmm. To Senatal and where the location of Starfleet headquarters is, or the origin of the message. And so the only thing I did have to criticize a little bit is I know Michael went down there too. Michael seems to have that connection and easily relate to Adira. But I just thought it was an opportunity for someone else in that particular episode. But it worked. It still worked. That was just my initial hesitance or initial reaction when I was watching that episode. But then as it was going along through the whole thing, I saw why they went in that direction. And then when they got to the scene, as soon as I saw that Barzan family, as we were talking before the video here, it was my immediate thought was, oh, she's going to stay behind. She's going to stay behind somehow. And sure enough, when that happened, I thought that part was a little predictable, but also disappointing because I did want to see more of that character, the security officer. Her name escapes me at this time.
Non,
that's right. Yeah, I want to definitely see more, but so hopefully we will see that character again in the future episode. But I thought it was pretty cool. Again, another episode where it felt very Star Trek-y to me. Definitely more of the TNG style of some kind of technical issue that they were encountering where the guy really wasn't a ghost or a tech ghost of some sort. So I found that very intriguing. I really like that. And then seeing the Orions, right, on that scavenger planet, that, and then of course the Andorians. We saw the Andorians in the first episode too, but just seeing all them, I'm going, oh man, this is all very original series. It harkens back to those episodes, and I'm not sure why, but I don't know if you all know too, the Orions, what's with their lips? They seem so stiff. Is it all the makeup that they're wearing or the prosthetics or rubber stuff around their face? But they seem like their lips are very stiff.
So they're not painted. Like in the 60s, they were painted green. They have a whole a whole head prosthetic that they put on the actors. So it's similar to how they do the Vision in WandaVision. He has a whole thing that he puts on his face as opposed to putting makeup on. It's easier to apply it and than trying to put makeup.
Oh, I see. It just looked weird. The lips were so stiff. And yeah, it was cool to see all those older alien characters that we've seen before on the original series. But as Chandra said, it was very cool when they got to finally see Starfleet and the Federation, what they looks like in the future. And Oded Fehr, I love him in everything he's done, even back in The Mummy. And I thought, as soon as I saw him, I was like, hey, great, he's in this. That's awesome. And sure enough, he didn't disappoint, especially the way he plays him at first. And as we get to know him a little bit and see him, now they come out as the Admiral Vance. I really liked how he developed, but it was an introduction to the new technologies. Everything looks like the Apple Store again, just like we see on in the Star Trek movies, except it looks more Apple-y. It's just no lens flares, right? So, but it was very nice and clean and technologically advanced. So that was cool.
The guy with the glasses, because I rewatched it and I'm like, I still don't know.
David Cronenberg?
David Cronenberg. Everyone says his name, just says David Cronenberg, but I can't remember his name because everyone sees him and they say David Cronenberg because that's who it is.
I see David Cronenberg. That's what it is.
I want to say Kovacs, but that's probably wrong. I think I'm mixing up my sci-fi. I think that's.
I don't remember his name on the show.
Yeah, everyone just says David Cronenberg, but yes, but the guy with the glasses, what you were going to say, Alcondra, that the back and forth with him and Georgia was interesting in the Die Trying episode. So yeah, what you guys said, I agree. It was great to actually visit Trill again. We haven't visited Trill since Jadzia went there, and we got to see some of the outside because I think when Jadzia went there, they dropped us straight into the caves. I don't think we saw other parts of Trill in that episode. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the last time that we saw those caves were with Jadzia when she was having issues, which again, there's a lot of like fanboy hate about this show. People who think that the people who are writing the show don't care about continuity and don't care about things that came before. They obviously do. They tried to recreate that. They updated the set a bit, but this directly connects to DS9, and a lot of things in this season directly connect to other things within Star Trek canon. So they're paying attention to that stuff. So I appreciated that. I agree with you, John. Culber could have gone down with Adira, and he probably would have been a better choice to go down with Adira. I think they were trying to serve the arc of the season and also the episode. And when they're trying to serve the arc of the season, sometimes individual episodes suffer. It made more sense for Culber to go down, but in the arc of the season, they had to get Burnham in the chair at the end. And I think that's why she went down with her in this episode, whereas it made more sense for Culber to go down with her. Although it's not like Culber wasn't doing anything because he was helping with the morale issue with Saru in that episode. So at the end of that episode, they play that Buster Keaton movie. They have the movie night, basically.
Yeah.
So he was useful there. And the next episode, the Die Trying episode, is, like you said, I really wanted to see more with Non. I hope that Non shows up again in season 4. I think, again, this is another decision that was made based upon the fact that they had a specific arc that they were doing over the season, and they had too many characters to juggle in this season. And hopefully there's a place for her in the next season, because her background, as you said, John, we were talking about this before we started recording, her background specifically, and also her people, the Barzan, I would like to hear more about how they have progressed since they were trying to sell that wormhole, that unstable wormhole, how their people have progressed. So hopefully she'll show up again in season 4. Admiral Vance throughout the entire season was great. I really appreciated his sternness and his like, okay, I understand you guys are from the past and you're technically a lot older than me, but you don't have my rank. You haven't seen what I've seen. I'm in charge here. I'm trying to not just maintain Starfleet. I'm trying to maintain a way of life, a civilization. So you're gonna have to work to gain my trust. Which is the exact right sort of response that they should get given what's happened to the Alpha Quadrant. So yeah, he was great throughout the entire season. I think one of the weaker, there are 2 episodes that were weak in this season for me, and one was Scavengers and one was Sanctuary, and they were both Book episodes. I like Book as a character. I like his addition to the crew, and I like the relationship that he has with Michael. Those episodes were a little weak. What was really good about that episode was the Giorgio Burnham mission. Like just Giorgio on the screen is always interesting because she chews scenery, and
especially with that Orion nephew.
Yeah,
right?
the back and forth with the Orion,
just constantly insulting him.
Yeah.
I was like, why hasn't he shot her yet? And she is relentless.
Yeah, she delights in being nasty, and it's interesting to watch. And then, and in this episode, we start to see that she has issues. She has like a mental issue. So that was pretty interesting. That was interesting to watch. Georgia was the most interesting thing to watch in that episode. And of course, at the end of this episode, Burnham loses her position. She was demoted as well.
Yeah.
Which makes sense given what she did. The character development over the first 6 episodes, I remember when I was watching this, there was a lot of chatter online about the fact that she bucks rules a lot and she does whatever she wants sometimes, and there's no consequences. There's actual consequences here. And I feel like people wouldn't be complaining a lot if you just changed her gender and also her race. Because if you go through the history of Star Trek, Kirk is always ignoring orders. The hand wringing and the
he got demoted.
Yeah, he got demoted as well. He got demoted from admiral to captain. So the hand wringing
still rewarded as shit.
Yes. Yeah.
You're demoted, but
yeah. So the hand wringing about Burnham, it makes no sense whatsoever unless you factor in the fact that she's a black woman, and then it makes sense why they're complaining so much. Yeah,
that's exactly.
Anything else?
My only other complaint was when they got to I keep saying Starfleet, the Federation headquarters, was there no, I don't know, YouTube videos to catch them up on what they missed, or some kind of training to say, hey, here's the new tech. Oh, by the way, this is what's changed now. You need to follow these new rules, or those are antiquated. Instead, they were just like, all right, this is the new tech. We installed it. No training. Figure it out. And I guess it's supposed to be, that's the catch. It's supposed to be adaptive, intuitive, and all that. But come on, just a little bit of something to just give. Hey, here's a 30-minute slideshow. Let's tell you what it's about. Oh, by the way, the slideshow is automatic. It tells you everything for you. So, but yeah.
So my sense is that they did say that, I think at the beginning of episode 6 in Scavengers, there was like a captain's log, and Saru mentioned that they had been in shakedown for a few weeks. So I think that when they were installing all the new hardware, they were retraining them. Because didn't they say in the second episode, sorry, the 5th episode, didn't Vance put his second in command in charge of getting them up to speed? Because they wanted to break them up in the second episode, and they convinced him to keep them together.
So subtle. To me, it would have been nice to have seen a few more seconds of it.
Right? What would have been nice is a montage. at least in that, even if they didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, a montage of them like messing with the new technology, that would have been cool, because there was a lot for them to learn, and maybe they didn't want to have to write all the new things, but even the things that they did.
Oh, I know.
Even the things that they did come up with were pretty cool. The new communicator slash personal transporter things slash tricorders. So they're like all in one, and they have this heads up display. That's pretty cool. I think a lot of people just like the programmable matter, but I like the badges. The badges are basically everything all in one, which is pretty cool.
I like the fish guy constantly popping up. Well, like, is he okay? Did he pop up in the wrong place one time?
Linus?
It's like, oh
Linus.
shoot, he ended up in the dilithium chamber.
The thing with Linus was that gag with Linus was funny. Yeah.
Well, what would have been funnier is if he kept doing it even into the last episode. Dude, the ship nearly blew up and you're still doing that.
Yeah. Anything?
I think Detmer was like the only one who had issues with the new control. Like, she just didn't like the new controls at all.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see her. I forget which episode it was where she piloted books.
That was in Sanctuary. The Sanctuary. Yeah.
And just she was just so excited.
Yeah. We can jump over to Block 3, which is Unification Part 3, The Sanctuary, which you just now mentioned, where Detmer flies Book's transformable ship, which was also a cool addition. His ship morphs. And then we got Terraformer Part 1 and 2. So what do you guys want to jump in with here?
Unification 3, I wanted that to be longer. I know the Next Generation Unification was 2 parts, and we had Leonard Nimoy in that. Oh, by the way, we didn't talk about this, but for me, I don't know about you two, every episode was a tearjerker for me. They were hitting me right over the head, making me even a tiny tear or just outright bawling on some of the stuff. Very emotional episodes. I know there's some chatter that people are bitching about that type of stuff, but like, why? Come on, it's great. I like it, and it definitely tugs at the heartstrings on some of the stuff. Sad tears, happy tears, all that type of stuff. And Unification was no different. Seeing Leonard Nimoy, I will admit, I was like, oh, damn it. Not only a great character, but the man himself, too. And everyone still reveres him and respects him to this day, especially in the sci-fi world and the geeks and nerds of the world. And to see that, I was with Michael there, seeing her, her Vulcan brother.
That was a great scene. That was a great scene.
So, great scene to go back and clearly cut right from Next Generation and all that stuff. And also his efforts that were referred to in the Kelvin timeline of the movies as well, the more recent Star Trek movies, where he tried to do that. He tried to unify the Romulans and the Vulcans. And to see that come to fruition in this episode, I thought was great. I just wish we spent more time with it. We got a little bit of a somewhat courtroom type drama with that, which I still like. And man, her mom was relentless with Michael in this one and just going at her and just hitting her hard. And Michael, come on, be honest with yourself. And I really enjoyed that episode quite a bit. And also in the end, the decision to basically withdraw the request, and that prompted the now called Nevar world to go ahead and assist in giving up the data they had regarding the burn. What was that called? It was some ST-18, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that was great. Sanctuary, we could see Osira in that one, and I thought she was a great villain. You're right, Nathan. You mentioned before I wasn't sure what to make of her at first, and she definitely showed a little bit more later. I wasn't sure how formidable she would be in that, but just the little bits and pieces I could see that there were definitely planting some seeds there. But that homeworld, the whole thing with, I don't know who the actor was that played Book's brother. I'm sorry, it just came up boring as hell to me, that one. It was just so boring. It's like, all right, go away now, okay? We saw the home world. We saw the pretty jellyfish flying in the sky and all that stuff. But, he was, to me, very forgettable. I don't know if it was the acting, the script. It just didn't work for me at all in that particular episode. And then Terraformer, of course. Anytime we get to the mirror universe, I'm always loving that. I think it's great. It's always fun. Any genre movie or TV show that I've seen where the actors get to play against type or against what they were before, a total opposite. You see it with Superman, all the actors that play the bad Superman and how much fun they're having. And the same thing here. You see all the actors doing it. The only one that couldn't pull it off quite right, and I'm cracking up over it, is the actress who plays Tilly. You see it. You still her still dainty walk, and I'm like, oh man, she completely lost character on that one right there, as she's trying to play a badass. And except for the kick, that was kicking Michael in the face. That's just brutal.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed those episodes quite a bit. I loved seeing Giorgio and Michelle Yeoh just really hamming it up, and of course her evolution in realizing that, hey, she has a chance to try to turn things around. At the same time, still sticking to her base nature, and at the same time, they incorporate some of that evolution and growth in her. And then, of course, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, what was it? The guy, the Guardian of Forever. Isn't that a concept or something from the original series?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I thought it was, right? I thought it was. I'm like, so I was telling my wife, I think that was from the original series. I just love how they're just keep referring back to it, and we're seeing lots of references. I thought it was very cool, especially updated versions of it. So I enjoyed these episodes, except for Book's brother. He can go away.
I thought it was so strange to me that after what Michael and Book had been like together for a year, and there was just so much they didn't know about each other. She's like, I didn't know you had a brother. Like, what were you two doing? Like, you weren't sleeping together.
No.
What were you? What were you not talking about this whole time? That was a surprise. And I wonder too if maybe there's a larger role for the down the road. Maybe I guess they don't connect to humans the way Troy did, but I do see like sort of some larger role for them.
They could be the navigators. They could be the navigators. They could be the navigators for the fleet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that's the way the spore drive, they're able to replicate it on other ships. That's a really good point. Yeah, the way Michael's mother went in on her during that was like, oh, this is like that mother-daughter relationship. That's how it is sometimes. Your mom can say stuff to you in front of other people that nobody else can, and you just gotta take it.
Except for that brief moment when she saw her last season. The last time she saw her, she was 8 when she got zapped into the future. So yeah, but she's been stalking her, so she knows everything about her life from the future. So it's interesting. Their relationship, their dynamic was definitely very cool to see.
Yeah. And the set her mother belongs to, I think the first time you see them is Star Trek Picard, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was like a touch to bring in.
It was cool to see.
The absolute candor.
Yeah, to help bring these two very disparate, or I guess as a way for Romulans to be more honest. Mm-hmm. Like John said, yeah, it was really heartwarming to see Spock's dream come to fruition in their new home. Because when they first said Navarre, I was like, wait, did Vulcan just is no more? And it's like, oh no, they came together. Like, okay, it's not as tough. And they found a home for the Romulans, and that's sort of also a carryover from Picard's efforts as well to find a new home for the Romulans. So that was, but yeah, I think I cried like every single episode in the season as well, and I don't remember really experiencing that with other Star Trek series, but I just think like they just hit a lot of timely themes, and it's a lot easier to see yourself in some of these characters. They just really connect. Like even Tilly is, I guess, was considered plus size. Like she's not your typical, or like somebody who would have been cast in previous series. And I think that she's really intelligent. She's really funny. She's also fiercely loyal. You see that thing come up in the Sanctuary, I think, where she's protective of Saru.
Right.
And I guess you realize Tilly had a tough life growing up, and that's probably like her relationship with Saru, where he's mentoring her and almost sort of giving her that guidance and encouragement that I don't think that she got growing up, but it helps her be more confident in her decisions and her thoughts. She knows what to do, but she's just this like nervous ball of energy, and she just needs to harness that and direct it, and having people nurture that and encourage you is really helpful. Say that their relationship was really nice to see that grow and see Tilly get that, because she doesn't have, I guess, that personality that people might think they want in a leader.
Right.
Smile and she's funny,
right.
But Tilly might cut you if you cross her the wrong way. And
that's right. I try that again. This time with respect.
Yes, I love that moment.
Yes.
I was like, wow.
Yeah. She was she was a great, the back and forth between her and Saru, like I said, and the way that she took the job very seriously. Because Unification Part 3 is when she was offered the job, because Scavengers is when Michael was demoted at the end of that episode. So she got she was offered the job in Unification Part 3, and she didn't take it until the end of Unification Part 3, if I remember correctly.
It was.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just responding to what you said. Do you have other things to say about?
Oh, I think I said sanctuary when I meant scavengers, because I think she says to Mike, "You know what you did, like you left me with no choice but to act this way." And that's when you started see her become, I think, a lot more protective.
Yeah.
And I think just like what Starfleet is supposed to be about, I think like Tilly, more than any of the other characters, sort of embodies that like hope and wonder.
Right.
Almost.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think of the Terra Firma episodes?
We were talking about this before. Like it was like sad to see Giorgio leave. She's so complicated, and you see that she clearly loves Michael. She would never say it. She would never use that word. And the Terran Empire, and here in, I guess, our reality or whatever, she just has so much feeling and wants Michael to succeed so much, but she can't admit it. I think it plays on those like complicated like parent-child relationships, but also to see her go back and try to change the Empire a little bit, because she wants it to survive, but she also recognizes that it can't survive the way it's currently running, people killing each other left and right. You're not going to be sustainable. And I think you started to see it in the end with Osira and the Emerald Chain. Fair will only get you, fair will get you a lot of places, but at some point it's not
Sustainable.
not, and people are going to, right, it's not sustainable on any level. But I think it was just a sad moment to just see her, because I feel like we probably won't see Giorgio ever. And I've enjoyed watching Michelle Yeoh play that character.
Yeah. This is the first conversation that you've joined, but I've mentioned Michelle Yeoh as one of my favorite actors on several of our conversations. So this is old news to John. So I hope that she comes back. She was supposed to leave the show to be in her own show called like a section 38 show, but I haven't 31. Sorry, section 31.
Yeah. Not section 8. You told me
it's
that.
not section 8. Section 31 show. But they keep talking about new shows and they haven't said anything about it yet. Yeah.
No, they
unfortunately. Yeah, so this block of episodes are probably some of my favorite, except for the Sanctuary one. The Terra Firma group were probably my favorite episodes of the season, even though they didn't have anything to do really with the rest of the season, just because of Giorgio, just because of, as you said, John, it's obvious that everyone in the cast is just loving, like, hamming it up and playing super evil. Actually, after the episode, I watched some of the interviews afterward, and they were talking about how much fun they had. So it was obvious they were having so much fun playing these characters. And just the story inside of those two episodes, like you said, Contra, it's obvious that she loved her daughter. What she regretted most in life is having to kill her. And then she had to resign herself to the fact that it couldn't have gone any other way, because the mistakes that she made with her daughter weren't around the time that she killed her. It was the mistakes that she made with her daughter was well before that. And there was no version of that Burnham that was ever going to see the world the way that she saw it. So I think she definitely loved her daughter, and she definitely loves our Burnham as well, because she's a reflection of what her daughter could have been, or what she. I don't know if I cried in every single episode, but I definitely cried in those episodes, and also in Unification. The very candid conversations that she's having with her mother, Burnham's having with her mother, when you can see. Sonequa was such a great actress. You felt, because they established this in the previous season, and there were a lot of the things that people complain about on the show is so long, but one of the things that they complain about is the fact that they linked her to Spock. But without linking her to Spock, you don't get Unification Part 3, and you don't see how proud she is of her brother. That made me cry. Just how proud she is of her brother and what he did to try to bring the Romulans and the Vulcans together. So that decision is paid off in that episode. Even if they don't do anything else, that decision is paid off. We're getting another spin-off show with Spock in it, so we even get even more Spock because of that decision. But that was great. Sanctuary, again, like I said, is one of the weaker episodes. I did appreciate that they resolved the Kayla PTSD thing here, or they tried to get a resolution where she pushed through. I don't remember which episode. Maybe it was Scavengers, where she fully went off during that dinner on.
Yep.
It's like you think you're the only one who suffers here, you're the only person who matters here. That was a great scene in Scavengers. I forgot that Scavengers. I guess Kayla was great in Scavengers, and she was great in Sanctuary. So the two episodes that I thought were a little weak, Kayla was awesome in those two episodes. The show, as you said, Conjure, this is the episode where she gets to actually fly the ship. She gets some of her confidence back. She flies it with a joystick. There was a little bit of a weird thing there where they were supposed to be in orbit, and you could see the ships from orbit. You wouldn't be able to see the ship from orbit. That was a technical issue, but it was good just for the parts that she had. The stuff on the planet was boring to me, like you said, John.
It's about
Except the jellyfish.
change.
The what?
The sea lice, I think, is what they call them.
I don't know.
Or sea.
It was causing an ecological disaster, causing famine because they were eating it was eating their crops. But yeah, that was a little flat for me. I think we got some more JoJo in this episode, or she got more sick in the Sanctuary episode.
I think that's when they started to realize, because they scanned her. They were trying to figure out what the problem.
All these episodes have so many things going on, and it's what's happening in the episode. It's what's happening in the episode, and also they have the threads. Because again, this is also Tilly stepping up more, and like you said, saying you need to do that again, but more respectful. So there's all these threads in this episode. So even though what happened in this episode, what this episode was about, wasn't really interesting to me, the threads from the other parts, like Kayla, Giorgio, and the Tilly stepping up, all those threads that were season arc threads were really good in that episode. Anything else about this block before we move on to the end? The last three.
Skip to the end.
Skip to the end. So the last three, Sokal, There is a Tide, and That Hope Is You Part 2. So I guess we haven't actually talked about the burn much in this entire conversation. I feel like one of the criticisms of this season was the burn wasn't that interesting, and the burn technically wasn't that interesting. The season wasn't really about the burn. The season was about connection and trying to reconnect. Yeah. But in Sokal, where we actually get the answer of what happened, we get the answer of what happened in the burn, and then we basically speed to the end after that, because we switch back and forth. And There's a Tide. Are we ever on? There's a Tide. We're not on Sokal's world. I think There's a Tide. No. Tide is all in Star Trek. I keep saying Star Trek. And Starfleet. And
Federation.
Starfleet headquarters. It's Starfleet headquarters, and it's also the Federation headquarters. And then we get the Hope Is You Part 2. So what stood out to you guys about this block of episodes?
Sokal, I thought it was interesting how they tied him, or that he's the culprit, right? He was the cause of the burn. And they tried to sci-fi it a bit with if you put him together with that trauma that he experienced. That event that he caused is all tied to the massive amounts of the lithium that's on that planet. Okay, I get that. I get that. It's okay. Sure, why not? What I found very cool was that they end up on the planet, basically, wherever they ended up, the OA team. Basically, it's like a massive holodeck. I thought that was a cool concept. Everyone showed up. Now, I didn't understand still why it was like that. The whole holodeck gave different appearances to everybody. At the same time, some of those appearances he's already seen before, so why was that so scary? Like, for example, Saru. Look, from an actor's perspective, hey, we'll save some money, we'll let the actor's face actually be seen in the very show that he's known for. Sure, I get that part, but at the same time, it's, hey, he's Kelpian. Now, you're saying that another Kelpian will freak him out? Come on. He's already seen hollow images of other Kelpians, like the Elder, and stuff. So it was a little thin for me, that reasoning as to why I did it. Again, don't get me wrong. It was fun to see that. Very, very fun to see. Oh, look, that's a Vulcan. Oh, look, that's a Bajoran. Oh, look. So it was cool to see all that. And, of course, still funny to see Doug Jones walking the same Saru way with his arms swaying behind him. So my wife and I, as soon as we saw they were walking towards the ship, I was like, that's funny. He's still walking the same way. But so that was cool to see. And then for Osira getting to the little showdown with her and the Admiral, she just chewed up every scene in that episode. I loved her. Janet Kidder. I think I looked her up, and that's Margot Kidder's niece. I was like, oh wow, what a cool geek connection. Yeah. So, And I saw photos of her. She looks way prettier than all that green crap they put on her and the prosthetics. But it was nice to see such a meaty part for just chewing up every scene. And it was great play back and forth with Osira and Vance. Again, as we were speaking, I think before the video, I didn't understand the motivation of Vance just basically dropping a huge bomb and just killing the whole negotiation with some of the demands and concessions he was asking for during all of that. Nathan, you had mentioned prior to our video that it seemed like he was really sticking to his ideals, and therefore, Osira, you're going to have to submit yourself to a war crimes tribunal, or you should be tried for it and all that. Come on, man. You just killed it all by doing that. And yes, I get it. You're trying to stick to your ideals and you got people fighting for it and all that stuff. But negotiation, you got to give. There's got to be some compromise. And I just thought that was, as soon as he did it, I was like, that was totally pointless. Like, we got the nice back and forth, but that he just killed everything behind it. And Chandra, you had mentioned that he didn't seem, I don't know, maybe he wasn't really, his heart wasn't in it to begin with. He was always suspicious or something. While I didn't see that part, I also didn't get why the hell he just, it just wasn't going to work. And then the other part was, I don't know what Osira really expected. Did she really expect absolute 100% commitment from Starfleet and Federation that they would go along with this? What was plan B? What the hell was plan B the whole time? Let's get out of here, blow a hole through the shield so we can get out of here. Just didn't get that part. As smart as it seemed like she was, she always seemed like she was hundreds of steps ahead. Just didn't account for plan B. There was not a single plan B in sight, right? Not a single one. But because of that, we got a nice showdown in the finale. We got the crew getting their moments to shine. Some parts a little cheesy, but at the same time, it was nice to see. And then, of course, I don't know what happened. I guess it was the pandemic. I think, Nathan, you had mentioned at one time there were some crew members still missing from that final episode. What happened to Jet? Where the heck is Jet this whole time? Jet should have been there to do some things. And it was very convenient how they got Stamets out of there as well, because he's the key and all that. But I enjoyed it. And then the only other criticism I had was the way they got out of there. Burnham got out of there with, they made the jump, the Black Alert jump out of there, and they got booked to try to do it, and he's never done it before. Could you have waited till he figured that thing out before you drop the warp core, right? Before you dump that thing out there? And I know they're trying to ramp up the drama on that. And yes, my heart was racing, and I get it. And another countdown situation to do that. But I just thought, come on. He just figured it out, or he hasn't even figured it out. He's never done this before, and you're doing that. The other thing that definitely stuck out for me was Tilly. Tilly with her attitude. Oh my gosh, that was just laying it on thick for Osira. I was loving that part too. I thought, oh man, she's just, she is just really handing it to her when she's talking to Osira. But Osira held her own in talking back and all that stuff. And the other, I'm sorry, there was one more part where she just relinquished her duties right away to Michael. I get it. She's, again, as you said, very loyal to Michael, but that was pretty quick in the thick of situation. She was doing great up until that part. And then she says, Michael, this is yours, and you lead us. It couldn't have been Michael, enact your plan now instead, and we'll figure this crap out later. And I get it, as you said, for the sake of the story, they were rushing into that. I just thought they could have chosen a better time to do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out to me as well. But I also wonder, she also just regained consciousness. I'm like, like maybe they've used her so much. Like maybe
she got stabbed, right? She got stabbed as well in the leg.
Oh well, Michael got stabbed. Those like they passed out because of Cyrus.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
I was like, well, how did you give up? But then you're probably like still woozy and not all there. Yeah, somebody else should have the command.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was, but yeah, no, she did an excellent job. Like she had great ideas, and I love that moment when Book says to her, "No, I'm staying because I know you can save Michael again. You can do this." So I loved that moment for Tilly. There was something else that you said. There was something you said, but it made me wonder. We don't ever really see anybody else from the Emerald Chain show up to like back up Osira. Oh, when you're talking about her not having a plan B. And I'm like, nobody, you'd think maybe they'd all show up at Starfleet headquarters to...
True. Where's the Armada? What are they so afraid of?
Yeah.
Navarre showed up for
So it makes
Starfleet.
exactly,
You're
yeah, and
right.
nobody showed up for her. So I guess now do we have to wait for season 4?
Um,
Maybe once the chain fractures, you maybe see all these different parties jockeying for power or something like that. But it seemed like she did not have. She said she had the
yeah.
support of the chain, but
Maybe that's why she's so desperate to make a deal. Maybe a lot of the strength that she had been talking about was just projection throughout the quadrant. Yeah.
and she did say she like used up a lot of political capital to get. So maybe they just hung her out. They were like, "We can do it,
True.
but we're not gonna help you." I don't know.
Yeah. So I agree with some of the things that you guys said about the last episode, specifically Tilly relinquishing the command very easily. It's a little weird to me because she was doing so well, but I'm not going to talk too much about the last episode because I did a whole 20-minute review on it, and I'll link up there. What I really liked about these last couple episodes was what they did with Sokal. Again, there were some complaints about the burn resolving itself like this instead of it being some sort of bad guy. It had this ending, but this ending is very much like a lot of Star Trek endings. The people that are complaining apparently don't watch a whole lot of Star Trek. They had a whole movie where they went back in time to get whales to talk to space aliens. It's a very Star Trek. It's a very Star Trek ending to what the problem is.
That's right. And that was one of the best Star Trek movies.
It was one of the best.
It didn't have a clear villain. It was not the typical villain.
Right. So the Sokal stuff, that actor, if you guys watched the show Legion, that the actor who plays Sokal is the actor who is, I forget what his name is, Erwin, I forget his name.
That sounds right.
I forget what his name is off the top of my head, but he's the one who shares his body with the young girl in that show, Legion. So he did an excellent job. And I think I mentioned this in my final episode review, but also Doug Jones did an excellent job outside of his makeup. And I think the reason that they changed him was a little thin as well. I think that we're trying to give him a little bit of a breather away from the makeup. And I think the in-canon or the in-episode explanation was that they're changing their appearance to make it more palatable for Sokal. But at this point, it's thousands of years in the future. He's seen all kinds of other species. No one who's going to show up is like a weird species to him. So it was a little thin. But it was fine. It was nice. It was nice to see Doug out of makeup. And he also committed to, like you said, keeping the mannerisms of Saru. Even though he wasn't on the stilts, he made it a very specific acting choice to say he looks different, but his body is the same, so it's still going to move the same. So that was an interesting acting choice.
What did they make Burnham again?
She was a Bajoran.
She was a Trill.
No, she was Bajoran. No, sorry. She was.
I thought Culber was.
She was Trill. She was Trill. Sorry. Yeah, she was Trill.
She was Trill.
I wondered though if that change also was to disorient anybody who did beam down, because they didn't have anything that they came with, and they actually had to say something to the Holo program to indicate that they were the rescuers.
Yeah, if you're Sokal's mom, anyone could show up, so you want to make sure you protect your child. So yeah, that's possible. Yeah,
okay,
I'll
take that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And then Gray, the Gray being visible to everybody was, I think, a huge part of that. So I'm guessing we'll see more of him in future seasons when them figuring out how he's even there, and then how the Holo.
Yeah. So the whole
that felt more into.
Good. I was going to say the whole.
I was going.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that seemed a little more. That was not very subtle to me. What they were doing with him and being seen, and especially his comment with Culber, that definitely seemed very on the nose to me about being seen. Talking about especially transgenders today, I did see that as well. But at the same time, it was a nice touch. I was like, oh, okay, a little obvious, but yeah, I can see why what they're doing with that. So.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, bring up Gray, because no episode was specifically about Adira except for Forget to mention Adira and Stamets' relationship through the entire season, because that was an arc, that was a thread that showed up in several episodes, but it wasn't what a particular episode was about. But that was very sweet throughout the entire season. I think he went a little aggro on Burnham when she made the decision that she made, and I mentioned this in my review at for the final episode, but it's obvious that his animosity for her is going to go into the next season.
Oh yeah,
Which should be interesting given that she's going to be the captain of the ship. But it makes sense. As big as he blew up, it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever that he was able to get over it that quickly. So he's definitely holding a grudge against Burnham.
Yep.
Because everything worked out, but he could have, like he said, lost his entire family. He was building this family with this young person, and he lost his husband already. He was going to lose him again. Yeah. That was some great acting, and I want to see how that unfolds in the next season. We talked about this. You guys said There Is a Tide episode. I don't agree that Vance did anything wrong in this episode. I think that the issue is Osira. Again, stepping back before I talk about that conversation, I do want to say that when we saw Osira show up in Sanctuary, she was lackluster to me, but they wrote her very well in Sukal, and they wrote her very well in There Is a Tide, and then they turned her back into a cartoon villain for at least half of the last episode. So her writing was uneven. She wasn't a terrible villain, because like I said, in those 2 episodes, she was very good, and she was actually very menacing. She didn't seem very menacing in Sanctuary. She seemed to just be talking a lot without much to back it up. In those episodes, she seemed menacing because she took over the ship, and she was willing to kill people. It was a little contrived in the last episode that she decided to slowly vent atmosphere instead of just killing them. But
yeah, that's the cheesy part.
Yeah. But
she killed the Andorian.
Yeah, she killed the Andorian.
Yeah.
She killed the Andorian. Yeah,
guy.
she killed Ren when she came back to the ship, just to show that she's evil. I think that she's become accustomed to living a certain way. At this point in history, Starfleet is like a myth, or not even a myth. The Emerald Chain understands that they exist, but they're so diminished. Sitting across from Admiral Vance, him saying that she'll get a fair trial, that her meeting justice means that she will be treated fairly. She can't process that. She can't process that as actually something that will actually really happen, because she operates the way that she's been operating for her entire life. The burn happened before she was born. She was born into a universe where people don't really keep their word. People don't have these high-minded ideals. She wasn't born in the Federation. So I think she screwed up that negotiation because she got in her own way. That's how I read those scenes. I don't think that Vance lacks any sort of guile or anything like that. I think that he was keeping to his ideals, and quite frankly, in that conversation, he made clear why he was keeping to his ideals. He can't have his people literally eating shit to hold up these ideals, and then have this war criminal and also slaver not have any sort of consequences. These people are literally recycling their crap to eat food so that they don't have to subjugate people or any other sort of things that they would have to do to get resources. So I think that's where he was coming from.
And that's why
that
I
was
say,
him making a point to her.
yeah, and that's why I say with her, then what did she expect, right? Especially coming from a world like that, and you're clearly dealing with people from the Federation and Starfleet that don't subscribe to any of those ideals. So what the hell?
Yeah.
But when he asked her that question, like who would be the face of this partnership, was like the first time Eli detected any deception.
That Eli thing was actually pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Eli hologram was an interesting addition to that conversation.
Right? Because then it was clear, like she doesn't, to Nat's point, she didn't plan to step away. She didn't have the savvy to know that she should accept any sort of punishment and any sort of change in how she operated. And she should have been smarter and had some forethought, like be ready to offer something up. You either need a scapegoat, right? Or you need to be ready to step back into a different role. Everybody can save appearances and make compromises that they feel comfortable with. And she, because she's used to just getting her way in lifestyle that she lived, I think that was probably like a part of her. She didn't see that.
Yeah.
She didn't foresee anything like that coming.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's unfortunate, because after Terra Firma episodes, I think my episodes ranking is probably Terra Firma Unification 3, and then There Is a Tide was where the top three for me, because that just the back and forth, the conversation. I like the talkie Star Trek. I like the conversations about ideas at Star Trek. The action stuff is good too when it's good, but I like the conversations about ideas Star Trek. So, yeah. Anything else before we wrap up, guys? Any other observations about the season? We've been talking for an hour now, so.
Some of the moves, like the promotions, demotions, people leaving, a lot of them they definitely telegraphed it. So it seemed a little predictable, especially with Saru planting the seeds leading up to him, especially when he first saw the hologram of Dr. Isa. And he just got all nostalgic. He went red. I quickly imagined that scene we saw from Ratatouille, right, when the guy takes the first bite and he goes back to mom making it, grandma making it, somebody made it. You just saw that in Saru's face, and I was like, oh, he's leaving. It just that came to my head right away. It's like, oh, he's got to be leaving or something like that. And sure enough. I hope he comes back. I think. Do we want to talk about the teaser we saw for season 4?
Yeah, he's definitely coming back. He's
okay.
So, yeah. At the end of the season, a lot of people were upset about Saru stepping down because it not necessarily. And I mentioned this in my review of the finale. I think it makes sense that Burnham gets the chair, and there were a lot of people complaining about that as well. But I'm not going to get into that about her becoming captain. I will say this. She's the lead of the show. She was always going to get in the chair. People should get over it. The two shows that the lead is a black person, they didn't give them the chair the first season. They made them wait 3 seasons. So Cisco had to wait 3 seasons. Having her not be captain into season 4 didn't make any sense to me. So she was always going to get the chair. But...
Jeez, if they had to work their way through 3 seasons to get to the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was Cisco's position before?
He was Commander Cisco. So he was the head. He was the head of the station, but he was a commander. If you remember, he was, I think, second. He was number 1 on that ship.
Yeah.
Where his wife died, and he basically went out into the boonies to lick his wounds. He didn't think anything was going to happen there, and then all the action happened around the space station. But yeah, the 2 black leads that they had in this franchise, they didn't give them the chair in the first season. They had to work for it, which is interesting. I feel like I'm just saying things that I said in that in my review. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting story to show someone progressing to the captain's chair, but they chose to tell that story twice now with black characters instead of someone else. So anyway, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so just some of those things I thought they telegraphed a little too much, and to see it happen just a couple episodes later. I know there's some general criticisms of Discovery, and one of them I say just just get it out of my way, because I know they are going for more of the emotional type stories and the season-long arcs. I'm a fan of that. I like that. I like while they still have somewhat of a tiny episodic elements on each show, of the series, I like the story-long arcs. I like them connected. I like to see where it progresses. I like to see, hopefully, some growth at the end, either with the characters or the story or the plot, advancing it along. Some parts did feel a little too fast. I wish they spent a little bit more time. But at the same time, I know that they're trying to do these all... The whole theme around it has been story-long arcs, right? You got a beginning and an end to cover ground into 13 episodes, and it's been a hell of a ride. I like it. I like it a lot, and season 3 for me is my favorite of the 3. I think it was pretty strong, lots of new stuff, and I'm looking forward definitely to next season.
One of those sort of like threads that happens in the background is the friendship between Kayla and
Owosakun,
yeah, which I think is great. It reminds me of the Geordi and Data, but these 2 really close bridge crew members, and just being really supportive. She always has somebody, both of them, like rooting in their corner, rooting for them.
Yeah, that was really good.
I'm like excited for season 4. I haven't seen the teaser for season 4 yet, but yeah, no, just really thrilled. It's because I'm guessing now they have to work at rebuilding the Federation.
Right.
And seeing like what that looks like and the obstacles that they're going to face in trying to convince planets to come back to the Federation. And I'm assuming cleaning up the mess from the downfall of the Emerald Chain.
Yeah.
So hopefully maybe they have a better villain, because now I feel like they might need a villain now more so than
A bigger threat.
Yeah, bigger
Yeah.
threat. Yeah.
Yeah, I there are people on the internet who are shipping Owo and Detmer, and I'm split. I'm split on this. It'd be nice to see a platonic female relationship similar to the one that you said, like Jordy and Data, in the show.
Yeah.
But it also would be nice to have that representation as well, because I don't. We know Jet Reno is playing a lesbian in the show, but she isn't with a partner. So I don't know. I'm more tipped towards platonic relationship, just girlfriends. But I can understand why people want them to be together as well, just for the representation. But yeah, their back and forth and their support of each other throughout the season was great to see. We were talking about this before we recorded. I want them to continue to give Owo stuff to do. That backstory about her diving in the caves and the Luddites
Holding her breath.
was interesting. They need to similarly flesh out the other bridge crew. They need to flesh out Bryce. They need to flesh out Nielsen. They need to flesh out Reese, because they need to give more for them to do. This season was about getting Burnham to the chair. So hopefully now that she's in the chair, they have a little bit more space to develop the other characters who are on the bridge, because I definitely enjoyed hearing a little bit more about what their backgrounds are and what they bring to the table specifically. Yeah.
Also, I wanted to point out, I forgot to say this early on, particularly about the first episode. This is the most Star Wars world that I think we've seen for Star Trek, because of all the world that they're in the future. Right. You got a lot of the, what do you call them? Not necessarily bounty hunters, but just worlds without
it's
rules,
like the Wild West, basically. It's about,
order. Yeah, it's like the Wild West. So to me, it was the closest to the worlds that we are seeing, like in the Mandalorian, compared to previous Star Trek. So I thought that was a nice little thing, nice little twist. But at the same time, somewhat rolling my eyes a bit, only because I know that people have tried to make Star Trek more Star Warsy, and there's a backlash against that. And I'm okay with that, because I enjoy both. Why not blend a little bit? It's a little bit okay. Yeah. And I know some people following Star Wars wish they got a little bit more technical on something, like Star Trek. Yeah. So why not have both?
Yeah, they definitely leaned into the Western, space Western thing, not just in the first episode, but also in the second episode, Far From Home, where they basically walk into a saloon.
Yeah, that's right. So, the doors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That was a pretty cool aesthetic, and they did it well. I think I'm in the camp of, I want my Star Trek to be more cerebral, and they were able to be cerebral while also playing around in a sort of cowboyish way that you see in the Star Wars universe. So I appreciated them doing that. And it's going to take them a while to put the galaxy back together again. So I think we'll see more Wild West, Outer Rim Star Wars things in the next couple seasons as well. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we are really interested to hear what you guys think. Comment down below, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.